So here is the poor old Vitz, which has been missing from this household for more than a year. It was stolen, and the police phoned us about a week ago, and it turned up literally just down the road. Bit of a mess, but apart from the obvious damage incurred in stealing it, so they've destroyed the ignition, which is going to have to be replaced. They didn't crash it or anything, so the only stuff that has to be repaired in addition to the ignition is the stuff over here. That's where they broke in, and the wing mirror has been clipped on something, and that needs to be replaced. The problem with these old Toyota, especially the JDM, Japanese hatchbacks, they're very, very easy to steal. You break that quarter glass, you reach your hand in. There's no deadlocking on these internal doors, so even when the car's locked, you can always unlock it and open it. And with the ignition, there's no, this is not there's no immobilizer. So all you have to do is get access to this ignition switch inside the steering column, and off you go. What I'm going to do today is fix up these easy things, replace this quarter glass and replace this wing mirror. And to do that, we need to just get inside the door card, because we're going to need to get access down in here. And just before I start ripping into that, one of the first things we're going to do is take this off and disconnect this, the controller for the main window. We don't need to touch the main window, but in order to get this out, this glass is going to have to be lowered down. And once you disconnect this, then you won't be able to do that. So you need to do it first. So come across here and use the screwdriver key. You don't need to start the engine. Just turn on the power, and then we just lower this down all the way. Okay, to start on the door card, just take this trim off first. The good news about Toyotas, all these cheap Toyotas, is that everything really is quite easy to take off. This whole thing comes off more or less in one piece. There is a cable here, so don't go yanking. You see, you have to disconnect that plug in a minute. Don't go yanking too hard on it. All of these literally just pulls off. There are these clips which go in these spaces along here, but not a screw in sight yet. And then once this is up, this plug here needs to come down like that, and this whole thing can just come off. Over on the front upper corner, there is this cover here, which not much in there to see. Next, there are some screws to do hidden under the pull trim. There's that one. There's one up in here, and the other one is there. Okay, you just need a crosshead screwdriver for these, nice and easy. Make sure you don't drop the screw down inside the door, or you might have trouble getting it back. And I also suggest that as you take these out, you keep the screws in the place that they came from, because even if they look identical, sometimes it's best to put screws and bolts back in the threads that they're used to staying with. This one is one where you could easily drop it, so be careful. And the door card now is more or less free, although it is still retained by the door handle. There's a cable behind here, so once it's off here, we can disconnect that and feed it through. What's retaining it now are just clips, which you literally just pull off. And this is what makes working on this car so easy compared to the European cars we have, where everything is completely over-engineered. I just realized I missed a screw. That's not good. I told you there were 3 screws, but there's 4. You see now that's completely loose. It will unhook. You have to sort of, this rubber hooks into the door up here where the window goes. So you need to unhook that. And then, as you can see, the door cable is just the remaining thing. What you can do is get your hand behind it and just push. There we go. Once it's free, you can sort of feed it through and out, and then the whole card is off and clear. So yes, if you want access to the inside of the door for reasons other than discussed in this video, of course you have the latch and the central locking motor in behind here. If you want to pull this off, you can do. I suggest you can just try pulling it. If it's really stuck well, you can get a sharp knife, like a box knife, and just work your way around. You cut the adhesive itself, not the plastic, and then you can usually just stick it back on like this, and that's going to be good enough. You do want it stuck back on because it's a weather shield. Anyway, door handle, obviously, window regulator in behind there, and speaker here. So looking at this mirror and the glass is sort of held in place by the mirror. So since we have to replace both of them, I'm going to start with the mirror, and that is screwed in place, and it's that's the electrical connector there, which has to come off, and this just unplugs by pushing in this little tab here and pulling it out at the same time. Now when you replace these wing mirrors, the Yaris has maybe 3 or more different types of wing mirrors. There's one with an indicator built into it, and there's one with power fold. This one has the power fold, but it does not have the indicator. And so far as I understand it, the way you can tell which is you just have to make sure you get the right plug with the right number of wires. This is the 5-wire version. So I think as long as the plug mates up, then you should be right, but just watch out for that. Okay, to unbolt the mirror, there are 3 nuts in a triangle here. They're 8mm hexes. I'm just going to undo them with a socket. You need to be very careful not to drop a nut down into the cavity, because then you're going to have a bad day. I can just use a deep socket to get into these. Quite tight, not super tight, but you definitely need a ratchet handle. A screwdriver isn't going to work. There's our first nut. You'll notice I'm doing the bottom ones first, because I expect it will be the top one which, if anything, wants to pull out. There's the second. You see it's loose now. There's the last one. And with a bit of encouragement, that will just pull through and out. Easy peasy. Now, to get this quarter glass out, this sort of thing is all part of the replacement, but this bar is not, and that's what retains it in. And there is a obvious screw here which needs to come out. And although that has a cross drive, I'm going to use the 8mm hex because it was quite tight and I couldn't actually turn it with a screwdriver. Keep that safe. So a few things. This is just a piece of trim which pulls off. You might need to take that off to access here. And then this bar, it's loose at the bottom, but it's retained up here. Firstly, we can pull the rubber for the main window down. Just don't take it all the way off, but just to make enough room. And then what we can see, if we look up in here, you see there's one more screw retaining that in. And that screw is visible if you pull this rubber up right then there. Unfortunately, there's no hex on this one, and I found it's very tight. So I tried with the screwdriver, but I can't turn the screw. What I ended up doing is putting the cross bit in there. You can try turning it with the handle, but the problem is that this being a Toyota, they've used a cross, and these things are very prone to camming out. And even though I push that in, if I try turning this, I can feel that the screw is... I'm going to end up stripping it out. I've probably damaged it a little bit already. Not very good from Toyota. That should be a Torx, so that I can put some actual torque on it. So what I'm going to do is just try a bit of penetrating oil. We can get it from the underside. And then after letting it soak for a few minutes, we'll just try that again. Given that this is this cross, you've got to use the right size bit, and you have to, I'm back to using a screwdriver again, you have to push it as hard as you turn it to stop it camming out. And yeah, I really am not happy with Toyota for not using a proper fastener on this, but you can see that's moving. So just slowly keep turning it. You can, yeah, it's definitely loose now. So it's definitely worth taking your time with these things, because if you stripped out that crosshead, you would have a very hard time getting that screw undone. That's good now. That's all it is that we're dealing with. This is now loose. We can pull this bar back, and we should be able to just... all this glass is going to go everywhere. Just don't worry about that. We'll clean it up later. It'll be harder getting the new one back in, of course, because the glass is actually present. Pull this more or less as far out as we need to, and you notice I'm doing this from the outside. Sort of tuck that up in there. Just push it as far up and as far back as it will go. And then find it will just sort of maneuver into place. Once it's in the correct plane, sort of push it forward, and you just make sure all of this rubber lines up around these edges how it's obviously supposed to. And you see this bar is already basically back in the correct place. This rubber will just find its way home naturally. Okay, firstly get this top screw back in. That's going to locate it in the right place. You can see that this window is already doing its job as it started to rain here. This requires a bit of pushing upwards. It doesn't quite line up perfectly. Nice and snug. Now it's good and solid. All of this rubber is lined up correctly, so the main window should slide up, no problem. Okay, moving on. This little black plastic piece of trim. There's actually a bit of double-sided tape from Toyota. It's kind of not going to work anymore, but it's just that clip at the top. Press that in, and then it's going to get held on the bottom by the wing mirror. Right, here goes the new wing mirror. So obviously the plug has to be fed through this central hole. Once the mirror is in position, you can very carefully get that first nut back on. Let's do the top one first because that will hold it. Get it hand tight. Now you should be able to let go and do the others. Again, just make sure you take your time and do not drop them. And the last one is the most delicate to feed through. Just snug them up. And just put this plug back in. It's going to use some electrical spray on it just to try to help stop corrosion, keep water out. There we go. You could, if you wanted, just check that the mirror's working. Okay, all that remains is the door card. Once you get that through, you can hook it back up on here. Just make sure that's going to be happy. The other thing is you need to make sure that this plug is not pushed down somewhere you can't access it. Push that in, and the rest of it is just going to push in. I just have this thing. Just going to make sure the hole's lined up, of course, but just going to push in. And then next would be the screws, the three main ones, one in there, and the other one in there. And then the last one up there. And this one's kind of the toughest. You can sort of balance the screw on the bit. Push it in there carefully. Yeah, this one, do it up tight. Come and do the other ones. And the last one, the one at the handle. Finally, we put this door trim back in place. And as we do that, of course, we're going to plug in the window control. And this is very simple. Just pushes in, snap, snap, snap. There we go. Done. And the last thing to do will be to test the window. As it comes up here, it's going to be pushing obviously on that rubber which we've disturbed, so if there's anything wrong with that it might jam, so just pay attention to that. That's all good. Okay, that's it then, job done. Hope that was helpful. Have fun.